Good afternoon, everybody. I am Jesse Nunnery. I serve as Media Relations Specialist with the City of Rocky Mount. I really appreciate each of you coming out this afternoon. The rain has held off, the wind is here, but we're going to try to minimize the time that you're sitting still, but we do appreciate your time. As you know, the reason we are out here is to honor Mr. Alexander Evans, as well as right away we'd like to acknowledge Mrs. Marjorie Evans for her attendance here today. So let's give her a round of applause to start, please. Thank you, Mrs. Evans, for attending. And thank you all for attending, city staff, city council, interim manager, Mr. Varney. Thank you to the Parks and Rec staff for quickly setting up everything, as well as our public works staff as well for being here, and leaders. As many of you might know, Alexander Evans was a City of Rocky Mount employee in 1978 when he picked up a suit of clothes left by a trash can at a residence in the Inglewood neighborhood. Evans was accused of stealing the suit and returned the clothing to his supervisor the next day. He was charged with misdemeanor larceny and suspended for 2 days from his job. The sanitation worker strike of 1978 soon followed. 40 years later, on October 8th, 2018, the City of Rocky Mount issued an apology to the sanitation workers employed during the 1978 strike, and a resolution was later presented in their honor. Later, the city, I might add, also was able to disperse some monetary reparations to some of those families. In September of 2019, our city's Communications, Marketing, and Public Relations Department premiered a documentary that not only told the story of Mr. Evans and the strike, but also how it paved the way for voters' rights and a fair and racially proportioned ward system that we enjoy today. At this time, I'd like to run through a brief thank you list before introducing today's speakers and our brief agenda. Again, thank you, Mrs. Evans, for coming today. We hope that everything we do today honors your family and your husband. Again, thank you, Councilman Blackwell, for helping me put this together. Again, thank you to our city staff for attending. At this time, I'd like to thank our many, many partners who helped us produce the documentary, helped us give historical context to the documentary. And some of those names, and please, if I've left you off, please do not take offense. Trying to remember a bunch of names, but we're going to start with the Phoenix Historical Society and Mr. Jim Wren. Reverend Thomas L. Walker, thank you for being here. English and Rudolph Edmondson, Willie Moody, Leonard Giles, Judge Quentin Sumner, Samuel Gray, Reverend Lloyd Morris, Saladin Muhammad, Richard Petway, the local chapter of the NAACP, and Gene Pryor. To summarize what we'll do today briefly is, in the following order, we will hear from Councilman Reuben Blackwell, Ms. Marjorie Evans, Jim Wren, and Mr. Leonard Giles. Following these remarks, we will unveil some signage, and there is also across the street a informational historical kiosk that has already been unveiled, but we have our Rocky Mount Police Department members who will safely make sure that you're able to get across the street to view that informational marker. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Councilman Reuben Blackwell to the podium to say a few words.
Good afternoon, family. Wow, my heart is full today in recognition of the benchmarking of history in Rocky Mount and how our community has always led in transformation and in struggle. And I know we're here today to talk about Mr. Evans, and we're going to give him due credit, and his beautiful wife that we had a chance to talk with is going to give her perspective of it. But I just want to say this continuum of struggle started in well, no, it didn't. It started in Reconstruction with 4 black men from Happy Hill who served on the city council, with 2 black men who were postmasters general, all who were run out of their seats because of their courage, their outspokenness, and their dedication to move our society forward. But their personal sacrifice still benefited in moving society forward. Took a long time, but the continuum occurred. 1946, the women who were working in the tobacco floor of China America warehouse decided that enough was enough, and abuse and disrespect had to end. And so it's fitting that in 1946, as part of the movement of labor in this state to move our society forward, that Rocky Mount had a significant benchmark in history, and those women organized the first union in North Carolina led by black women. And then comes 1978, and a man and a people dedicated to making sure our city was what it needed to be, and while taking up other people's trash, saw treasure that could be rescued and distributed, but yet still persecuted. And that man, Mr. Alexander Evans, started a movement in his courage that I have to give thanks and honor to those who came before us. Reverend Walker, sitting right here, let's give him a hand, who counseled, brought them in. Reverend Dr. Elbert Lee, who was president of the NAACP, who also was pastor of North End Missionary Baptist Church, who said, "We will stand with you." And even though they were intimidated, challenged, threatened with their jobs, they still did the right thing. And there is a continuum I hope that we will see in Rocky Mount, that we got to have courage enough to stand up wherever we are, speak the truth, push against any opposition, and never, ever, ever look back, waiting for somebody to pat us on the back and put $1 in our hands to compromise who we are as people of integrity. Because this is about moving our whole community, our whole state, our entire nation forward. And today I'd like to thank the leaders of the movement that I know across this state. Saladin Muhammad, Ajamu Dillahunt, I see you. We appreciate you for encouraging us to keep the work moving forward. And at this time, I also want to say that the struggle still continues, doesn't it? We always got things that need to be done. And while we are working on moving forward, we yet have adjustments to make. I want to thank Rochelle Small-Toney for having the courage to go ahead and move this part of the vision forward too, because frankly, if it hadn't been for Rochelle, we wouldn't see these signs today. So Rochelle, we say thank you. So can we appreciate her today? Now I also want to say, sanitation, we still need you. We better not forget that the people who are doing the dirtiest and the hardest work should be valued the most in ensuring that all of us need to live comfortably. So the challenge to this administration, the one coming in, is to make sure the value is appropriately placed, the environment is set for progress and for true added benefit to everybody, and that we have all adopted a core value of shared prosperity for all. When one level rises, all of us should be able to rise together. So we thank God for the city of Rocky Mount. Thank you for making this possible, giving due recognition to our Mayor Pro Tem, TJ Walker, to Richard Joyner, who's a council member, to Councilman Knight, who I spoke with yesterday, who said he's doing great. Thank you so much for the prayers and the sincere expressions of support, not the insincere ones, but the sincere ones. Thank you. He knows who you are. And great appreciation for your prayers. And myself and any other council member that's here, I don't see WB, Chris, or Lodge, but I'm sure they're here in spirit. And our mayor, do not see him today, but I'm sure he supports this as well. We appreciate what you're doing. We thank you, Ms. Evans, for your sacrifice. And at this time, we want to turn the program over to you. We know about him, but it ain't a him without a her. That's right. So can you put your hands together for Mrs. Marjorie Evans, who is a powerful woman. She told me they were married for 50 years, and she stood by her husband while he ministered to others and took care of others' needs.
I'd like to say good evening, this afternoon to everyone. Good to see so many here for this occasion. Mr. Blackwell asked me about speaking. I said, what am I going to say? And I thought about it after I talked to him. I said, it's best to start from the beginning. It's a long way back, but we're all still here but him. We met in 1949. That's when they moved down here from Halifax. We went to the same school as Whitaker School, which some of you don't know that the Junior Hill Community Center was the school that we went to. And he was older than I was, so he graduated before I did. But every day, I used to have to walk 3 miles to that school from where we were staying. So he would walk me home every day. Neither one of us saying a word. Holding hands. They told somebody about it. I said, why y'all ain't talking? Don't know it. How y'all got together like that? He told him it was magic. But anyway, that's what happened. We wound up getting married. We didn't talk much about it. But after we were married, seemed like something just got into him and he took off. We've been talking ever since. So I don't know about what caused that. But we had 7 children. Some of them are here today. I have to say that he used to work down the road there at Marble Lounge place. He worked there for 17 years. That's when he left there and went to the city. He didn't want to go there because he didn't ever like dirty work. He liked getting his hands dirty. But that's what God sent him to. But he didn't know it at that time. He had called him for some other job, but he wound up at the city. So when all this came about, he said things weren't going right down there. I said, what you gonna do about it? He said, I don't know right now. But he did something about it. When he got into it, they wanted to fire him because he wanted to start a union down here. But some of the boys were with him and some of them weren't. But I just think that he went on and they had these marches and stuff. He was a good little boy back then. But he was out there marching too. And up on his daddy's shoulder. Never good. But I just thank the Lord that the Lord gave him courage to go and do what he did. He was with him every step of the way. He said God had to put him there because all that stuff that he was doing that he wasn't interested in. So I told him that's the way it is sometimes. So just through this white suit that was brought to the house, he brings stuff there and give it to other people and stuff that needed it. But when he brought that white suit to the house, there wasn't no white suit, it was a cream color suit. It was just as nasty as you could see, colors, like he'd been wearing it for years. Black around him. I said, you should have left that in the trash. So he said, well, I'll probably carry it back the next day. So the next day he came, he said, I got to take this suit back to work because they asked me for it. I said, for what? You put it in the trash? Because that's where it needs to go. So that's when all the things got started and everything. But as they were saying, that's when hell broke loose. So we took the suit back and we went to court about that suit. The suit they brought in and said it was a suit that he had picked up. That was a lie. That suit that was white and pretty like it was brand new. It was nothing like that suit that he brought home. So I didn't never do nothing with you. I used to clean up stuff when it burned like this. That suit won't get cleaned up. I could use so it was trash. So I didn't do nothing with it. But I just want to thank the Lord that he kept him along. Whatever he was doing, he was right there with him. And I just want to thank you guys that got with him on this occasion. And everything turned out okay.
The Phoenix Historical Society has existed since 2001 to recover, record, and promote the unique history of the African American community in Edgecombe County, from slavery to freedom, and which struggle continues today. On behalf of the members of the Phoenix Historical Society and our president, Mavis Stith, and we have a number of members here today, I applaud the city of Rocky Mount for uplifting the legacy of Alexander Evans, a city sanitation worker and freedom fighter for workers' rights and the African American community of Nash and Edgecombe counties. Over 43 years ago, in July of 1978, Alexander Evans, a leader among the workers, was arrested and suspended from his job based on an unfair and false accusation of stealing a suit of clothes left by the trash cans on his garbage pickup route. When the city manager, Bill Batchelor, did not ensure these charges were dropped, 37 of Evans' co-workers went on strike, put their jobs on the line for justice, and did not give up till a victory was won. The black community of Rocky Mount rallied, marched, boycotted downtown business in support of the workers. They saw this unfair treatment of Evans as an attack on the African American people who lack voting rights and political power to prevent racial oppression. If they could do it to Mr. Evans, they could do it to me. The workers put forward two demands: exoneration and reinstatement of Alexander Evans, and a public apology to Evans and the workers. Due to the strike of the workers, which brought this city to a halt for several weeks, and the efforts of others, Evans was exonerated by a Superior Court jury in 1978 September. But it took 40 years before the Rocky Mount City Council apologized to the Evans family and the striking workers and issued restitution payments to compensate workers for wages lost during the strike precipitated by the city's unfair treatment of Evans. The signage and the educational marker unveiled today is a continuation of that rectification process initiated by the majority black city council 3 years ago. In many ways, the majority black city council of Rocky Mount today is a result of the movement for black political power in Rocky Mount, Edgecombe County that grew out of the sanitation workers' strike in 1978. About 20 years ago, my friend and brother Alexander Evans, who inspired and supported us in organizing the Workers' Unity Committee and UE 150 at Consolidated Diesel, he gave me an important document he wanted me to have. This was the original copy of the press statement of the Concerned Citizens Association and Reverend Thomas L. Walker, issued at the conclusion of the strike on August the 30th, 1978, when the workers announced their return to work. This press statement not only called for justice for Alexander Evans and fairness toward the striking workers, but also called for a new racially proportional award system for electing city council. The statement ended by saying this: "This matter is not over. It has just begun. The suffering of the sanitation workers and of the Rocky Mount community is a price that must be paid for democratic government and freedom." In the years following the strike, Alexander Evans became the first chairperson of the Black Workers for Justice. And members of the Black Workers for Justice joined Naomi Green, a staunch advocate of the sanitation workers, as plaintiffs in the 1983 Rocky Mount voting rights lawsuit that resulted in racially proportional awards for electing city council. That lawsuit empowered voters to elect a black majority to the Rocky Mount City Council beginning in 2003 and continues to this day. Likewise, voters in Edgecombe County elected a black majority to the county commissioners in 2008 and continues to this day. It is fitting that we remember that workers, sanitation workers like Alexander Evans, make history and make change. We today in Rocky Mount and Edgecombe County are indebted to the freedom fighters like Alexander Evans, Naomi Green, and the sanitation workers of 1978. We must ensure that their contribution to our history is publicly presented and never forgotten. And the next voice you will hear will be from my also friend and comrade, the leader of that strike, Brother Leonard Giles.
My name is Leonard Giles. Grew up in Tarboro, North Carolina, and I'm a Vietnam vet. When I got out of Vietnam, came home, couldn't find a job, so came to the city of Rocky Mount and got hired as a sanitation worker. And my mother told me from when I was a child, I don't know why she said it, maybe she had a premonition, she said, if you're gonna be a garbage man, be the best one in town. So that was my philosophy, okay? And I met Mr. Evans, and when he came to us talking to us about Jesus. And at the time that he was talking to us about Jesus, our minds were everywhere else because I was 26 years old. But every day he talked to us. And then he started working on the truck with me, and then we started having little prayer meetings before we go to work. And so he encouraged everybody to love him. We started calling him Preacher Man. And so he started talking to us and trying to help guide us and stuff. And so when he got accused of stealing, I felt real bad because I knew a lot about him, but I knew he wasn't a thief. So I went to the supervisor and I asked them, I say, what's going on with Mr. Evans? And they told me, said, well, it's not your concern, okay? So my thing is this, I said, well, if they accuse him of stealing today, if I go out there tomorrow and somebody say I stole something, they're not gonna take time to try to find out whether I did or not. They're just gonna let me go. And I learned this from growing up is that if I look over there and see a man treating you wrong and I don't say nothing, who's gonna be there when they treat me wrong? Because my day is coming. And I just wanna, I never in my wildest dreams believed that this day would happen. Never. And I'm glad that people will always remember Mr. Alexander Evans, right? And I just want to say that the only reason that we were successful in 1978 is because we were standing on the shoulders of a giant. And the giant shoulder that we were standing on were the citizens of Rocky Mount. because they were the only ones that supported us, right? We had 4 or 5 strikes, so when you don't work, they don't pay you. So we used to have these little rallies out here in Storm Street Park and all over, and people would come out, and they would give nickels and dimes and quarters to make sure that we had something. And that's how we sustain, right? And the only thing that I want everybody to understand is this, right? Is that the giant does not always sleep. The giant's gonna wake up. And as the giant begins to wake up, things gonna start changing, you know. And I'm full today because I know Miss Evelyn and her family, they made a lot of sacrifices, right? But they stood by him through thick and thin. And he used to always tell me, he said, Giles, he said, don't worry about it, everything gonna be all right, you know. But I couldn't see it. But I stuck with him and I stuck by him. And when he got exonerated, I got exonerated because my heart was clear. And a lot of people say, well, why would you make the sacrifice? And like I said, I always go back to the Bible. When Cain killed Abel, God said, where's your brother? And God already knew. But Cain asked God, said, am I my brother's keeper? God never answered that. And this is my lesson that I learned, and I teach my kids and grandkids, that we are our brother's keeper, right? And if you are not willing to pay a price for what you believe in, then it's no need for you to ever step out there because you're going to be challenged, right, to stand up for what's right. And so I just want to say to the city of Rocky Mount, it's 40 years later, but it's okay, you know, because Mr. Evans is resting in peace because he's clear. And I just want to say thank you to everybody, especially to the citizens of Rocky Mount. I have to continue to say to them because we couldn't be successful without them. They are the reason that this plaques are here and all of that. Like I said, they used to come out and they throw nickels and dimes and quarters. We didn't get paid nowhere the money that we were making, but guess what? That's what kept inspiring us because we felt like people cared. And so they are the victory. They deserve the victory. We'll just happen to be there by the grace of God. So I just want to thank you and thank everybody. And I just pray that one day we got to live together. So we all need to learn to work together.